Sometimes the medium of film can be a tricky thing. Not everything that works well in our imaginations, or even on the page, can easily be adapted to the screen. In a book, you can describe a feeling, write out the character's thoughts, and bring a sense of foreboding to whatever lurks in the shadows, just by a few descriptive sentences. On film, it's an entirely different experience. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Every new sub helps us achieve our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 horror films that squandered interesting concepts. Number 1. Truth or Dare. Usually, getting lit and playing Truth or Dare with a bunch of friends who know your deepest fears and anxieties is already terrifying enough. You just know they are gonna either make you tell your most embarrassing secrets to a group of strangers, or dare you to do something dangerous, or even worse, make a move on your crush. So when I first heard they were making a genuine horror film around the game of Truth or Dare, I thought to myself, this could be interesting. Will one of them turn out to be a secret serial killer? And as the game progresses, his secrets spill out, and now he needs to kill them all? Will the dares lead them down a rabbit hole of frightening experiences because they're all a group of sociopaths? Or maybe even, following in the footsteps of films like Witchboard and whatnot, they do a little seance and play the game with a supernatural spooky ghost? Then the film released, and it was possibly the dumbest thing I've seen. Like someone saw a creepy smile Snapchat filter and tried to come up with the most inane story about it. To top it all off, it had one of the worst endings. The only other film to do something so truly dumb was Rings, the third film in the American Ring franchise, which sees the main protagonist upload a YouTube video to infect the world. The plot is so simple it can be summed up in one sentence. A demonic entity forces people to play Truth or Dare, or it kills you. But eventually, it kills you anyway, because reasons. And it doesn't get any more in depth than that. It has its moments, sure, but otherwise, it did nothing with the concept. Number 2, Men. Most people avoided this film over a misunderstanding of its subject matter, or simply because the reviews coming out about it were pretty terrible. The truth is, the concept is actually smart and relevant, especially in social talk surrounding things like the Me Too movement and the rise in physical violence and sexual assault in general. The real issue is the execution of this idea. This film is just all over the place, and to top it off, it's so boring. The main protagonist is kind of unlikable, and people in the film don't really behave like real human beings. And then there's that burst scene that comes out of nowhere. A cool looking and gruesome effect. It just doesn't really fit with the rest of the film's tone. If you want to do a horror film about the horrors of being stalked, misogyny, and assault, a film like Irreversible is pretty much the hardest hitting film to ever broach the topic. Honestly, this is a very common complaint I have with many films lately. That they either have one scary scene and try to build an entire film around it, like Night Swim for example, or that they have a concept and like someone with ADHD, they go off on a tangent and lose the theme, so in the end, it's just a jumbled mess of random ideas. Number 3, Countdown. You ever have a phone app that you can't delete, even though you never use it and it just takes up precious space on your phone? Most of the time, it's pre-installed crap from your phone's manufacturer, but sometimes it's an app you got from the store, and because you thought it was from a trusted source, you downloaded it only to find out the app is crap, and it had a virus, and now it's on your phone forever. I mean, in normal circumstances, you just reset your phone. And funny enough, The protagonist of this film actually does this. One of the few times she actually shows normal human intelligence. After that, the film just kind of struggles to keep the runtime going. An app that wants to kill you could be an interesting concept to be played with, especially in today's climate with everyone's fear of advancing AI technology. What if your phone had a mind of its own? All your information is stored in the cloud. The AI could access everything about you and stalk you wherever, even if you change phones, etc. Could be a crazy film. Instead, it's a countdown clock that tells you when you'll die. And surprise, surprise, like some watered down version of Final Destination, if you manage to defeat Death's design, or in this case, survive even just a second past the clock's timer, you win the big prize. Trauma for the rest of your existence. Number 4, Thinner. We here at Fat Ninja love all things Stephen King. And yes, that even includes Maximum Overdrive. But that doesn't mean that the films are always perfect. More often than not, they are utter train wrecks, and much more campier than they are scary. Take Thinner, for example. A horror film steeped in the cursed genre, where a shithead businessman gets cursed for being an asshole, and now has to make things right, or the curse will utterly destroy him. Often, this lends itself great to comedies and inspirational family films, like Beauty and the Beast, where after the cursed character learns to be a better person, they get a happy ever after with true love and sunshine. So to see it done right in horror films is always a treat. The concept behind Thinner, that Billy can eat whatever he wants, he continuously loses weight until he ends up as a pile of bones, is an interesting idea, but the way the film is presented is much too goofy, and the characters are all generally unlikable. All of that combined, and the film just doesn't elicit the kind of fear you would feel if this were happening to you in real life. Number 5, Ghost of Mars. Vampire aliens on Mars. I mean, come on, that sounds awesome as shit. Throw in some of the biggest up-and-coming actors of all time, and to top it off, it's a John Carpenter film. This should be a slam dunk. Instead, it was one of his weakest efforts, with a nonsensical plot, really terrible dialogue, over-the-top and out-of-the-place action, and just generally bad pacing. There were better special effects and scarier moments in Total Recall than there were in this film. And it's obvious that the studio wanted the next big Pitch Black film. So there's a lot of similar aspects lifted directly from the Riddick franchise. I think the worst thing in this film are the really out-of-place flashback scenes, which don't really do much to further the story or character development, and give the film a cheesy, campy tone. Carpenter is no stranger to injecting action or comedy into his horror films, especially in his later years. But he really missed the mark with this one.
Hey folks, sorry to interrupt, but we just launched our very own merch store at fatninja.shop. We sell everything from t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more, so we would greatly appreciate it if you checked it out. All the proceeds go to our future projects, so it helps us make any kind of movies and short films that we want to make in the future. So if you got time, check out fatninja.shop. Thanks again, and back to the video.
Number 6, Brightburn. A pretty simple concept, actually. What if Superman were evil? Like it's been done in the comics. You have Red Sun Superman, and the Injustice Universe Superman, and of course, Ultraman from the Crime Syndicate. But those were all adventurous and action-packed. In reality, a person with the abilities of Superman existing in real life, able to do whatever he wants, and knowing how human nature works, is probably one of the most frightening ideas ever. I know plenty of people who throw hands just over a side eye, and kids who get into fights over which Fortnite skin is the best. So I can just imagine some 12-year-old brat not getting in his way and setting his entire school on fire with some laser eyes, burning up everyone inside, and then learning that there's no one that could stop him, so he can get whatever he wants, whenever he wants. When this film was first announced and the first teaser trailer dropped, I was hyped for it, because I could imagine all those terrible and terrifying things. And then, the film came out. It's not terrible by any means. There are some pretty brutal moments, and overall the story does make sense. But they never push it to its limits. It's like they're holding back throughout the entire film. And some of the characters just don't act natural. Even when they are supposed to be pretending to be okay and go along with the kid so he doesn't do anything dangerous. It just feels wrong. I expected It's a Good Life, you know? That episode from the Twilight Zone with the kid and the super mental powers. And instead, I got the CW version of The Boys. Number 7, The Night House. Spoiler, the monster in this film is nothing. So, the idea is solid. We all fear becoming nothing, forgotten, just gone. It's why people believe in things like an afterlife or reincarnation or so. Because the idea of just not existing suddenly is a cruel and disturbing thought. So a film where the main entity is a representation of that, a devourer who, like death itself, turns you into nothing, and that it had been following you for your entire life, is a really cool idea to explore. Sadly, it works better on the page than it does on film. Film is a show, don't tell medium, and there are concepts that really need some outside of the box thinking to pull off. The film is more like 90 minutes of boring exposition and 20 minutes of actual spook factor. And it's convoluted on top of that, as if the film didn't know what it wanted to be, a murder mystery thriller or a demonic entity film. That isn't to say those two genres can't mix well together. Look at films like The Exorcist 3 or The Sixth Sense. But you can't just structure half your film to be one thing and the other half being another without a really good bridge in the middle to connect them. This film's connective tissues are flimsy at best. A shame, really. Number 8, Pet Sematary. Another Stephen King entry, but not the last on this list. This film takes a massive departure from the book it's based on. Most notably is the entity that's causing all the problems. In the book, it's the curse of the Wendigo, but in the film, it's just undead things being mean because they're undead. The one saving grace of this film is Gage. That kid is just too cute. And when he gets hit by that truck, my jaw dropped. Then seeing him run around in his little outfits wielding a surgical blade, I mean, come on, that was both cute and terrifying. The chemistry between the cast was also pretty great. They felt like natural people, so I give them props for that. But this film experienced an issue I mentioned earlier, where sometimes certain concepts are harder to translate to screen than they are to write about it. They either had to do an exposition dumps to keep the plot moving forward, or a bunch of stuff happened and audiences just kind of went, what? Even more unfortunate is that in 2019, they attempted to remake it, promising it would be closer to the source material. And somehow, they managed to make it even worse film with the concept. The newest release gave us little more of Judd's backstory, but it just felt as flat as the remake. Stick to the book for this one. Number 9. The Unheard. The story is a simple one of Chloe losing her hearing at a young age and went in for experimental surgery to regain her hearing. Well, side effects of auditory hallucinations regarding missing women, including her mother, just felt flat. I mean, that would have been a really cool idea to see, but just doesn't play out right. Even the character development is just off and has no real depth to it. To find out that she isn't actually hallucinating and just hearing spirits would have been so much better if the story of a serial killer was blended more into it. Like, it just felt choppy and like certain things just didn't make sense. Why is there more about her recovery instead of a serial killer or missing women? It could have been done so much better than it did. But between the dialogue and lack of chemistry between people, it just fell flat. I would have much rather had the main protagonist be a little more badass than she was. But most of the time, I felt like she was just too scared to step outside her little world. Number 10. Children of the Corn. Last but not least, our final Stephen King entry. And look, it's about creepy kids doing evil things while a malevolent demonic entity influences them. I know King had a rough childhood, but I swear, I wouldn't want to be a kid ever in his universe. You're either getting enslaved by demons, dealing with psychopathic bullies, or being eaten by interdimensional clown spiders. Anyways, the idea isn't actually that bad. It feels very much reminiscent of films like Village of the Damned and Omen, and being set in some small hick town in the middle of Nowheresville, Cornfield State. It's perfect for an isolated horror event that can easily explain why it could happen in the first place, without drawing the attention of the FBI or state troopers. More plausible than Desolation, anyhow. A group of children raised in an ultra-religious town meet an actual godlike entity. So of course, they begin to worship it and do as it says. Like a reversal of the Crucible, this time the witches win. They slaughter all the parents and adults, anyone who could possibly think for themselves, or not fully worship he who walks beneath the robes. Led by a charismatic kid straight out of the Andy Griffith Show. Easily a parent's worst nightmare movie, and yet, I think we're like 9 movies in now, and they never managed to get it right. Thanks for checking out the video. Did we leave any films off the list? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X @StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked below. Make sure to check out our very own merch store located at fatninja.shop. All proceeds go towards our next film project, so we'd greatly appreciate it. I've been your host, Jamie. Thanks again. See you in the next one.